Wait. The room goes quiet. Go back. Back to what? The first date. A finger slides across the timeline. Not the day you left. Not the day you stopped answering. Not the day they called you impulsive. Earlier. Much earlier. There. A note from 8 months before the ending. You had already said something was wrong. Another mark appears 6 weeks later, then another, then 3 months after that. Someone leans closer, counts them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate moments where you tried to fix the thing they later claimed you abandoned without warning. The person building the timeline looks up. You called this impulsive? Nobody answers. Because once the dates are in order, the story starts insulting the people who told it. That is the problem with a timeline. Memory can be emotional, opinions can be loud. A timeline does not care. It just sits there. Date, event, response, repeat. And suddenly what looked like one dramatic decision becomes what it actually was. The last inch of a road you had been walking for years. They thought you snapped. You didn't. They thought you overreacted. You didn't. They thought you woke up one morning and threw everything away. No. You had been carrying the decision quietly for so long that by the time they finally saw it, it was already old inside you. That is what the full timeline exposed. The ending was fast, the decision was not. There is a difference, a huge one. People love calling something impulsive when they only notice the final movement. They see the door close. They do not see the 100 times you stood beside it wondering whether you had the right to leave. They see the block. They do not see the months of messages before it. They see the resignation. They do not see the Sunday nights where your stomach dropped at the thought of Monday. They see you stop calling. They do not see how many calls ended with you staring at the ceiling, wondering why every conversation made you feel smaller. Then the person reviewing the timeline asks the simplest question in the room. How long had they been trying before they left? Silence. That is where the label starts breaking. Because impulsive needs speed. Your story had delay, a lot of it. You waited, you watched, you adjusted, you lowered your expectations, you raised them again. You forgave, you explained, you tried being direct, then softer, then quieter, then patient, then more patient than anyone had earned. You did not move too quickly. If anything, you became an expert in moving late. That is not praise, that is history. You had a habit of staying until certainty became unbearable. You wanted proof, not one bad day. A pattern, not one careless sentence. A pattern, not one disappointment. A pattern. You kept waiting for enough evidence that even your guilt could not argue with it. That takes time. The timeline shows the time. 17 days between the first warning and your first serious conversation. 42 days before you brought it up again. 3 months before you admitted to yourself that the apology had changed the mood, not the behavior. Then another 5 months before you made the decision everyone later called sudden. Sudden? No. It was almost painfully slow. That is what makes the accusation strange. They benefited from the delay, then used the final speed against you. You know how that works. As long as you hesitate, everyone is comfortable. As long as you keep reconsidering, everyone gets another chance to avoid reconsidering themselves. As long as you are asking, am I being too harsh? Nobody has to ask, have we been asking too much? Your doubt protects other people. That is why they liked you doubtful. Doubt made you negotiable, and you were negotiable for a long time. Too long. You would make a boundary, then soften it. You would make a decision, then explain it until the decision sounded like a suggestion. You would say, I can't keep doing this, then spend another 6 weeks doing exactly that because someone looked hurt when you tried to stop. There is something almost cruel about being a person who understands everybody. You can always find one more reason to stay. Their childhood, their stress, their fear, their loneliness, their intentions, their potential, their good side, their one beautiful apology. You could build a bridge out of excuses and then wonder why you were the only one walking across it. The timeline shows that too. Not because the person building it knows your heart, because behavior leaves marks. Every time something happened, you reached toward repair. That matters. You did not go from peace to disappearance. You went from problem to conversation, conversation to promise, promise to repetition, repetition to exhaustion, exhaustion to distance, distance to decision. That is a sequence. Sequences are inconvenient when somebody prefers the word impulsive. So they ignored the sequence. Much easier. Something got into them. They changed overnight. They just snapped. No. Overnight is what it looked like from the outside. Inside you, the night had lasted a year. That is what the timeline found. Your final decision had a long shadow behind it. And here is where it gets uncomfortable for them. The first major thing you stopped doing was not caring. It was arguing. People thought that meant you were becoming unpredictable. Actually, it meant the opposite. You had predicted the conversation too accurately. You knew the opening, you knew the defense, you knew the part where they would say you misunderstood. You knew the part where you would start explaining details. You knew the exact moment you would hear yourself talking too much. You knew how it ended, so one day you skipped it. That looked abrupt, but why repeat a conversation whose ending you can recite? You were not acting on impulse. You were acting on accumulated information. That is different. Impulse says, I feel this now, so I move. Pattern recognition says, I have seen this enough times to stop pretending the next round will be different. One is heat, the other is evidence. They confused the two because they only saw the moment the evidence became visible. The person with the timeline keeps going. Now the small details start lining up. The message you never sent. Drafted at 1:13 a.m., deleted at 1:19. Not because you changed your mind, because you realized you had already said the same thing 4 months earlier. Then the dinner you left early, they called it dramatic. Except there were 3 earlier dinners where the same joke had been made at your expense. You laughed the first time, you corrected it the second, you went quiet the third, the 4th time you left. That is not random, that is progression. Then the call you did not answer, they used that one too. See? Cold, impulsive, punishing. Except the timeline shows 5 previous calls, all answered. Each one lasted more than an hour. Each one ended with the same problem somehow becoming your tone. By the sixth call, you did something revolutionary. Nothing. You let it ring. That was the whole scandal. A phone rang. You did not answer. And because everyone had become accustomed to unlimited access, ordinary absence looked like aggression. Interesting. The full timeline makes a lot of old accusations look different. Unpredictable becomes stopped repeating the same response. Cold becomes stopped over-functioning. Impulsive becomes finally acted after prolonged hesitation. Distant becomes reduced access after repeated disrespect. Amazing what happens when sequence enters the room. The adjectives get nervous, because adjectives are powerful when they float. Pin them to dates and they have to answer questions. When did this start? What happened before it? How many times? What changed after the apology? Who had been warned? What was repeated? Simple questions, sharp little things. The timeline is full of them, and every answer points the same direction. You did not explode, you expired, slowly. That is a much darker thing. Explosions are obvious. People respond to explosions. Expiration is quiet. A relationship can expire while both people are still texting. A job can expire while you still show up every morning. A friendship can expire while you are still laughing at the same jokes. A version of you can expire while nobody notices because you are still performing the role. Then one day the performance stops. Everybody panics. What happened? Nothing happened. Everything accumulated. That is the answer. Everything accumulated. The missed respect, the tiny dismissals, the jokes, the promises, the pressure. The unreturned effort, the strange way your needs always became complicated while everyone else's needs arrived as emergencies. No single item was enough. Together? Different story. That is what a timeline does. It turns one small thing into the 15th small thing, and the 15th small thing is not small anymore. People understand weight badly. They think only large objects are heavy. Try carrying a glass of water for 12 hours. Same glass, different problem. Time changes weight. You carried things too long. That is why your hands opened. Not impulse, fatigue. But even fatigue is not the whole story. Because if you were simply exhausted, you might have rested and returned. You did not. That is where the timeline becomes more interesting. After the decision, your behavior stabilizes. There. That is the part nobody expected. Impulsive decisions usually create chaos after the adrenaline fades. Regret, reversal, damage control, backtracking. Your decision did the opposite. The noise decreased, your sleep got better. Not instantly, but enough. You stopped rehearsing arguments in the shower. You stopped checking who viewed what. You stopped composing explanations in your head while driving. You stopped imagining the conversation where everybody finally admitted you were right. That is not what happened after a reckless choice. That is what happened after an overdue one. The person reviewing the timeline notices that. They mark the weeks after. Week 1, restless, sad, no reversal. Week 2, still hurt, no reversal. Week 4, calmer, no reversal. Month 2, routines return. Month 3, no attempt to reopen the old door. That is when someone in the room finally says it. They didn't make the decision too fast. Pause. They made it too late. There. That is the sentence. Too late. That one hits differently, because you spent so much time worrying that you were impulsive. Maybe they got into your head. Maybe even now, some part of you hears that accusation whenever you choose yourself quickly. Too fast, too harsh, too final. But the timeline tells a different story. Your problem was never speed. Your problem was requiring too much proof before allowing yourself to trust what you already knew. You would notice the pattern early, then wait for certainty. Notice the disrespect, then wait for a worse example. Notice the inconsistency, then explain it away. Notice how your body felt around someone, then accuse yourself of being unfair. You were not impulsive. You were often the last person to believe your own evidence. That is why people could say they were shocked. Of course they were. They got used to your delay. Your delay became part of their comfort. They assumed every boundary had an appeals process. Every no had a second hearing. Every ending had another conversation hiding behind it. Then the appeals process closed. That looked violent to people who had never accepted the first decision as real. It was not violent, it was final. There is a difference. This is where the full timeline stops being about them and starts revealing something about you. You do not make your deepest decisions in public. That is why they seem sudden. By the time you speak, you have usually had the conversation with yourself 100 times. You have examined both sides, defended them in your own head, defended yourself too, then attacked your own argument, then rebuilt it, then waited, then tested it against reality. You are not reckless with endings. You are private with processing. Those are not the same thing. People mistake private processing for no processing. They see the verdict, not the trial. They hear the final sentence, not the months of testimony inside you. So when you finally say, "I'm done," they think the words created the decision. No, the words announced it. That is all. The decision was older, sometimes much older. That is why your voice can sound calm when the moment finally comes. You already survived the argument internally. The emotional peak happened somewhere nobody could see, maybe at 3:20 in the morning, maybe in your car, maybe while washing a plate, maybe after a sentence so small nobody else would remember it. That is where the decision was born. Then you carried it quietly until it could stand. By the time you said it out loud, it had bones. That is not impulse, that is incubation. And once the timeline shows that, something else collapses. The story that you gave up. Did you? Look at the order. You gave chances, then clarity, then patience, then distance, then one more chance, then the ending. What exactly was left to give? Another version of the same conversation? Another season of hope? Another year? At some point, persistence stops being noble and starts becoming a refusal to read. You read, eventually. That is the whole thing. You read what repetition was saying, not what promises were saying. Repetition is louder, always. Anyone can make a promise once. A pattern makes a promise every day. You learned which one to believe. That lesson changed your timing. Now people may call you faster. Fine. You are faster now. Not because you became impulsive, because you no longer need 12 identical lessons to identify one pattern. Experience compresses time. The first time you touch a flame, you learn slowly. The 10th time, your hand moves before the lecture begins. That is not fear. That is memory doing its job. And no, you do not treat every person like the past. That would be lazy. You simply stopped pretending the past taught you nothing. That is different. You still watch, still listen, still give people room to be human. But the room is no longer endless. There are doors now. There are clocks. There are limits. Not because someone told you to have them, because life built them into you. The timeline keeps going. It shows something else they did not expect. You did not spend the aftermath destroying anyone. No campaign, no public war, no obsession with proving the story. You moved, slowly at first, then more naturally. That matters, because if the decision were purely impulsive, the emotional energy often keeps spilling after it. You're settled, your life stopped revolving around the event. You found ordinary things again, a morning with no dread, food you could taste, music that did not feel like evidence, a room where nobody was monitoring your tone, a day that ended without a post-mortem. Boring things, beautiful things, that is the proof nobody thought to look for. Your peace held, not perfectly. Nothing human does, but it held enough for the timeline to make one final point. Your decision did not destroy your stability. It restored it. And that is where the accusation dies. Not because you never made an impulsive choice in your life, everyone has. Not because every decision you made was flawless. Of course not, because this one had history. Sequence, warnings, repetition, delay, cost, and finally action. The full timeline does not make you look reckless. It makes you look patient past the point of reason. That is almost worse for the people who told the old story. Because now they have to face the possibility that your ending was not caused by one bad mood. It was caused by consistency. Theirs. That is the line nobody wants. One bad day can be apologized for. A pattern asks for something harder. Recognition. So they called the ending impulsive. Much easier than admitting the beginning had been repeating for months. Much easier than asking why you had to say the same thing 5 times. Much easier than admitting the final choice was built by all the choices they made before it. That is what the timeline reveals. The ending belonged to you. The road to it did not. They helped build that road. Every dismissal, every repeat, every time they counted on you doubting yourself, brick by brick. Then acted surprised when you walked it. That surprise is not evidence. It is just surprise. And now the dates are sitting there, quiet, unemotional, impossible to charm. The first warning, the second. The apology, the repeat, the distance, the final conversation, the decision, all in order. Someone looks at the line again, then at the people who called you impulsive, and the room gets very still, because the timeline does not say you moved too fast. It says something much harder to explain. You waited. You watched, you knew, then you left, right on time.